So I bought some lamps. They're like $160, $180 a piece. I bought a couple of those. They were broken in like the first 2 weeks. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like because in the architecture world, like I'm a big lighting guy. Like I love good lighting and interesting and cool lighting.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this was a bad idea.
Right.
Keep It Tiny, a show where we discuss in depth the business side of tiny homes, glamping, tents, domes, and everything in between. As you guys run this business on your own, can you talk to me about, some of the guests that you've had and kind of what you've learned from them, and also what you've learned, over your time that you didn't know?
We've only had one bad guest.
Okay.
Let's start there. So we feel really lucky because that's something you don't know. Like you don't know if people are going to come in and respect your space or not. You hope that they will. And it's, again, after you've put in all your hard efforts and money, you want people to come in and appreciate it and respect it. But you don't have control of that. That's not like a parameter you can put in Airbnb.
Right.
So we've been fortunate. We've had one kind of bad experience that was handled very easily through Airbnb, and it was over and done with, and not much to dwell on. It was just like, okay, that happens. But beyond that, what we've been surprised with is how receptive all the guests have been, I guess, to like what we are offering or what we aren't offering.
Right.
They're not coming in or going away from it saying, oh, geez, it would have been nice if you guys had this, or we'd have no curtains on our windows. And that was actually something we wondered if people would really, because that's a different way to live. Like people are used to pulling a blind, but we're up here, you're in the nature. There's not, for ourselves, we felt like, I think I've been used to living in houses without blinds, like, so it was something that I wanted natural light. And we thought, well, people are we have one person, make comments about like, oh, it'd be nice for window coverings. But ultimately, what I think surprised us is how very little, like, I mean, more positive feedback than negative, but just how receptive people have been to like what it was that we've put together, which I guess is in some way validating that we've covered the bases. But even though we were really approaching it for ourselves, I was like, what would we like?
Right. I mean, there are things where I think we came to this with sort of that mindset of conservation, like be mindful of using your energy, be mindful of using the wood, be mindful of using how much water and, those kinds of things. So there have been times where it seems like there is an excess
Yeah, people are just on vacation.
Of these resources being used, but...
And some of that's our fault too, right? We feel like we probably need to do more signage and requesting of like, hey, be mindful of this. Like keeping, you only have, there's a 200-gallon tank out back, and, in a day, they say like in a person's day-to-day use at home, it's like 120 to 150 gallons per person per day, right? That's
crazy.
A lot of water.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we don't have a flushing toilet, so now you're just saving, you're saving money there. But like you should probably get by like, in fact, in the wintertime, when we have that shut down and we're providing water on site, we give like 5 gallons for the weekend for like hand washing and dishes and so forth. And then we tell people, we give you a gallon of drinking water, bring additional if you feel like you're going to need it. Nobody's ever had so we know that they can conserve.
Right,
we know
right.
They can conserve.
In the winter.
Yeah. But when you give, and that's one thing I'll say is like, I guess when you give them that little bit of extra, like they will take it. And like, so one of our things was like, mindful of your waste, water consumption, the lighting consumption, all these things. It isn't necessarily that we like, shame on you for doing that. It's like, because we understand like people are up here to enjoy it, and we want them to enjoy it the way that is that fits their way of enjoying it. If it means that they need to take a, longer shower and it, burns through some water and so forth. Oh, we don't want, but at the same time, our hope was like people would, approach it in the same way that we were going to approach it. And that's not, like I said, you just don't have that control. And you don't want to limit that.
Yeah.
But I think we need to plan better for it.
Yeah.
So
Right. It's part of that learning curve.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then speaking of a learning curve, can you let me know some of the things that you have learned starting this business and also some things that you've kind of failed at? I know that, we were talking about you guys were providing things that you're no longer providing just because you're realizing, just from a pure business standpoint, there's, the law of diminishing returns and it just wasn't making sense. Can you guys chat about some of those ideas and thoughts that you've learned along the way?
Yeah. What do you want to? So initially we, one of the things was we, creating this experience, this getaway, relaxing thing. One of the first things that we started to offer when people were booking was a local cider, hard cider that we thought was kind of a nice touch to the area. Mm-hmm. It introduces them to what's out here, and we found.
And it's something we enjoy.
And it's exactly right. So it's something we enjoy. It's something that we see as like a really it's a huge draw to this location. And if people don't already know about it, we feel like they should and go and see this. So we were offering a bottle of cider, with every booking and so forth. And it was interesting because not to say that they didn't all enjoy it because it was always empty.
When we came.
So they definitely drank it and enjoyed it. But very few people were like, oh, this was, they never really commented about that. So we don't know if it was necessarily something that was going to detract if we didn't do it, or if it was this additive thing that because we did it, that was so much better. And we're like, and it gets expensive to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And so we were like,
I guess if we weren't getting a sense of this was an appreciation, was that something that
that
would move the needle from a business standpoint, or are we just spending our own money?
Right.
That's it. And as you start to operate this as a business thing, and that's the other thing. That's I guess the other side of it is you put so much of yourself into you're a part of this building. We are we spent so much time and money into it. We had to learn to pull ourselves away, separate us from that, knowing I was so worried about these floors. When I put them in. I was like, it came up and they're muddy and they're, I was like, no, you got, we got there's a
my house.
Right.
Yeah, it was we were looking at it that way. And actually, that's funny that you say that because one of I did make this comment one day because the bad guest that we had, the place was a mess. It was a wreck, mud everywhere. And I said, well, would you walk through your own house like that? That's all we ask is for some common courtesy. And that was us just being so attached to the build. And not to say that we still aren't. We do not want people to ruin this stuff. But
you heard it first. Come here, trash the place. They're cool with it.
But it was we had to learn to separate it from that kind of a emotional attachment to this is a business. Things are going to happen. Right. Things are going to get damaged. Jen just spent this spring, we repainted the whole inside because over the winter months, with the wood stove, you'll get the soot over the course of the year, the season being burned. And we were like, well, we'll try to clean the walls.
It didn't work.
It's way faster. Just repaint it.
Repainted the whole thing.
Yeah. So these are the things. That's some of the things that we did learn. Is there's probably going to be way more maintenance than you initially think.
Things are going to get dirty.
Things are going to get dirty. Things are going to get broken. And not everybody's going to use it in the way that your mind has that out there.
Well, and I think initially, we spent a lot of money on lighting.
Oh man!
I mean, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah,
it was broken.
When you say you spent a lot of money, around how much?
So I bought some lamps. They're $160, $180 a piece. I bought a couple of those. They were broken in the first 2 weeks. I was just and I'm because in the architecture world, I'm a big lighting guy. I love good lighting and interesting and cool lighting.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this was a bad idea.
Right.
I didn't know that they would be so fragile. So now we the lights behind us, which are pretty, they're a nice kind of ambiance light for the bedside and stuff. They were a little bit cheaper, but still not. They're over $100 a piece, each of those. What else did there was some other thing. Oh, well, the speaker. I have this Bluetooth speaker that's we spent some money to elevate the experience.
Right.
But hoping too that that stuff was going to be handled with care. And so far, fortunately, most of it has, like I said, other than those lights, like that was
but that was again with that learning curve.
Yeah.
We
they
learned.
were glass. I mean, that was like in my mind, it was like, oh, they're just going to sit someplace and they're going to be safe. No, because I'm transporting. In fact, I'm guilty. I broke one of them myself. And with a bottle of cider, actually, that hit it. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
So, funny, right? And then the other one, it was like within the first week or two, one of the guests, had an accident, broke it. It was, to no fault of their own. They covered the expense of it and stuff. And that's the other thing you have to navigate, too, is that when that stuff happens is how will you handle it? I think most of the time you're going to find that guests are willing to make right on their mistakes. But that's through those episodes, like we learn, okay, we need durable things, things that aren't going to, people can grab it. If they drop it, it's not going to be, we do worry about the Goal Zeros at times because they can't get wet.
Yeah.
And if somebody took it outside and left it accidentally, we'd have to charge for the repair or the replacement. And, the nice thing with Airbnb is they have things in place to help protect you as a host against things like that. So you're not necessarily going to have to eat those kind of things. At the same time, you don't want to see it happen.
Absolutely.
But so you just start to learn like where, durable products are necessary, and you might need to kind of like tone down some of the, but it depends on what you're trying to curate. Like, what is the experience you're creating? Go to that level, but just know you're going to change it along the way. You're going to swap out some stuff.
Yeah. And as a happily married couple, in business together, can you guys talk to me about how you guys kind of navigate that? Does one person handle one thing, another person handles another? Does everyone kind of just kind of know what they're best at? Or, do you have the hardship of like, hey, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it either. Can you talk to a little bit about it?
This just came up yesterday.
With keeping it as kosher as possible.
Right.
Well, we definitely have our roles. Like, we know what each of us is better at. Jen, I will say, can be guilty of her end of slipping a little bit here and there.
So there's two. I tend to be a little bit of a procrastinator.
Okay.
And he is not.
All right.
And my current job is a bit more time demanding, I would say. So for me, finding the balance has been a little more difficult.
Time demanding in the sense that when she leaves work does not leave her mind.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing, right? Because she, even though we're home at the same time, her mind is still focused on that work, which sometimes consumes the space and puts the other things off. Where when I leave work, and my mind, I'm geared into something else. So that's a luxury that I have that she doesn't have.
Yeah. And,
but we know what each person is going to be better at being able to handle. Like, so for instance, I'm the one who comes up and does the cleaning. Like I do the turnover. We tried this together. It was like, go outside. Like somebody goes inside, somebody goes like this.
One chef in the kitchen.
It's just, because it was weird. It was like, we're working over each other. It was like, I'm trying to do this and you're trying to do that. Like, don't make the bed when I'm doing this. It was like, this is just easier to
I would rather prep anything outdoors.
Okay.
So I'll stack wood. I'll take care of the trash. I'll, do the setup outside and then he'll take care of the inside. So we know that part. Like, having two people in one small space, trying to kind of maneuver and do the same thing, it was not working.
Yeah, it was inefficient. It was actually taking longer. I was like, man, I do this faster when I'm by myself, So we learned quickly. And
I come in here and I'm kind of like,
she doesn't know where to go.
He's got like a routine and a system down. And I come in and I'm a bit like kind of fumbling. Like I'm not sure where to start.
And what's funny,
I say, let me just take care of the outdoor stuff.
Yeah, she's like, she'll stack the wood and like take, like she said, take out the trash. And I just kind of cue things up at the door. And I was like, you handle this, and then I know when it comes back to me empty, it's done. I can bring it back in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But like system now.
Yeah,
I used to detail cars when I was in like right out of high school. So I still have this like methodology of like kind of front to back, top to bottom thing as I work my way out. And I still, so when I come in, I'm already like assessed everything. And she's like, what do I do for, I'm like, no, boom, I'm doing this. And that's been pretty good. And I will say like the biggest believe it or not, the hardest thing I think for us is the linens.
Yes.
Having this being an off-grid setup without facilities on site, we transport all this stuff back and forth between here and our main residence.
In bins.
Where we handle all of this. Everything gets washed between every stay, and we have multiple sets of everything. But you still have to stay on top of it. And that is, I mean, you just like, oh, it's just another load. It's not, it's like 3 loads of laundry every time, because it's the quilt, it's the blanket, it's the sheets. And then, then we have the pillows and the cover, and we disinfect all, because especially with the COVID, extra precautions had to be taken place. That has been one of the largest time-consuming things.
And then where to store that at the house, without having all the clutter. And so that's
something we're still trying to refine into a nailed down system where it just feels like clockwork. It's not there yet, believe it or not, after 4 or 5 months of doing this. Like it's still like, I think what it is, it comes down to is like, we just need more of everything so that we don't feel so rushed about it. But
And do you guys accept a same day turnover, or does there have to be a day gap?
We do a day gap.
Yep.
Because right now, us doing it ourselves, it's just way too hard. And initially we didn't know about that setting. And we did get a couple of instances where we had to do the same day turn, and that was
you have a 4-3 hour gap between one guest to the next.
I'm taking work off to come up and do this, and it was so frazzled. I'm like, what? We can't do it like
that
this.
That first month was really so stressful.
So we leave a day in between that gives us a chance to come up and do it at a calmer pace. And rain or shine doesn't matter. Cold, winter, it doesn't matter. I come up to do it, but I do need that 24-hour period to make it more manageable for us.